This time, the story is about the executioner. But let's be real, this damn protagonist truly earns the title. First off, he starts by claiming he's not a hero, then turns down the proposal of a gorgeous villainess who basically offered herself on a golden platter. Yet he still ends up killing every villain in sight, saying he's just cleaning up the city. This is the story of the strongest man alive, who vowed to wipe out every last villain after his friends and brother were killed by one, even when the odds are stacked against him. At the top of the mountain, beneath a dark, brooding sky, a guy pinned someone to the ground by the neck, panting heavily. The white-haired guy beneath him just laughed, saying, "I knew it. You're way better than those pieces of trash lying over there." He claimed our boy had immense power but refused to use it, and now all his teammates were dead. Brutal. Our protagonist, let's call him Ganyu, told the bastard to shut up and stop spouting nonsense. But the white-haired guy just smiled and said Ganyu should be the one to kill him, that only he was worthy enough to do it. Then came the twist. Ganyu refused. He said justice would be served. At least that's how the story should have been. Shouldn't he have just ended him right there? Honestly, after everything that just happened, Ganyu's decision makes you wonder, maybe he's not as badass as we thought. Moments later, he was strapped into a suppression device. Let's call him Huang. Huang was sentenced to death for killing 5 heroes of equality. Talk about a certified badass villain. Meanwhile, our boy was barely holding it together, completely drained. He muttered that he had lost the will to live after everyone he cared about was murdered. Then his brother showed up, trying to comfort him, telling him not to blame himself, that he had done the right thing and shouldn't push himself any further. Ganyu insisted it wasn't his fault. After all, his teammates had told him not to kill any villains, and they ended up dead while the villain walked away alive. His brother reassured him again, saying he did his duty as a hero and deserved some rest. He also reminded Ganyu that Huang's execution was set for this week, and he would be there, so Ganyu should try not to overthink it. At least, that's how things were supposed to go. A few days later, Ganyu attended the funeral of his fallen comrades, standing silently beside his brother. But on the day of Huang's execution, everything shattered. His brother was murdered. Yeah, talk about a brutal twist. And the look on Ganyu's face? It said everything. He couldn't understand it. The villain was still alive. His body count was rising, and somehow, the law kept protecting him. The hero found himself attending his own brother's funeral. He was soon visited by a stunning woman, flanked by 2 bodyguards. With a calm yet somber demeanor, she expressed her condolences for his loss and handed him a tablet, asking him to watch the footage that revealed what had really happened to his brother. As Ganyu stared at the screen, a flashback began to play. His brother, Miho, for convenience, appeared alongside several other execution officers, all standing around Huang, who was fully restrained and strapped down. Huang looked up at Miho and remarked that he looked familiar, like someone connected to Ganyu. Miho merely shrugged, offering no reaction. Huang, undeterred, asked if Miho enjoyed the thrill of killing others. As cold and composed as ever, Miho simply replied that someone had to do it. Then came the moment of execution. Through the intercom, Miho asked if Huang had any last words. Without the slightest trace of fear, Huang responded by asking who was older, Miho or his brother. The comment carried an unsettling calmness, and despite the situation, it was hard not to give him credit for his nerve. But just as the execution was about to proceed, everything went dark. Back in the present, Ganyu reacted with disbelief, as this had never happened before. She confirmed it was an EMP strike, explaining that someone had clearly planned the whole thing with precision. All right, back to Miho. He, along with the rest, were thrown into confusion, unable to process why there had been a blackout in the middle of an execution. Then, the moment we'd all been waiting for, Huang appeared behind one of the men, placing his hands on his shoulders. With that, the man exploded. Huang smiled, as if enjoying every bit of it. Closing the distance between himself and Miho, Huang remarked that he sensed Miho was older than Ganyu. Miho, clearly tired of his nonsense, lunged at him, but in the next second, his hand was crushed, as if he was being reminded what a real firm handshake felt like. Even in his battered state, Miho refused to back down. Snatching up the baton, he screamed, "Justice must be served," as he charged. Yet Huang merely stretched out his hand, and in an instant, Miho's entire body was crumpled into a meatball. Talk about being a force of nature at such a young age. The lady further introduced herself as the head warden, claiming that the EMP strike had freed many prisoners from their suppression devices and put several warden officers in danger. She stated she needed our protagonist to take care of them. Ganyu, with a deadpan expression, agreed, but on one condition. He would go there as a prison correction officer, not as a hero. The next scene showed several prisoners banging on the door, demanding to be freed as if this were a 5-star resort, and their checkout time was merely slightly inconvenient. Suddenly, the door opened, revealing our protagonist, looking all stylish. He announced, "I'm Ganyu, your new correction officer." Everyone stood in shock, unable to process why a supposed hero was now wearing a prison guard's uniform. Thinking their sheer numbers would be enough to overpower him, they charged at our protagonist, because of course, who needs strategy when you've got numbers, right? But our boy didn't even flinch. He simply stood there, unmoved, before saying, if blood and death is what they want, he'll gladly deliver. With that, he punched a hole through them, reducing their numbers by half in an instant. Speaking through the intercom, he announced that everyone from the ground floor to the 5th basement level would be executed immediately unless they put on their suppression devices. Honestly, moments like this make me wonder if he's even a hero at all. Was mass murder just part of the job description? Huang, on the other hand, heard the news and felt a surge of hope, because nothing says heroic rescue like a bloodbath and a guy itching for violence. Meanwhile, on the ground floor, chaos echoed off the concrete. Prisoners shouted over each other, demanding answers. Why the sudden bloodbath? One chubby guy threw his hands up, voice cracking as he swore he'd only killed less than 4 people. Everywhere turned chaotic, prisoners shouting and demanding their lawyers. Amid the madness, one guy saw his golden opportunity to escape. With inhuman speed, he bolted past everyone, even our protagonist. He was just about to reach the door when, yeah, you guessed it, his head exploded. Our guy hadn't moved an inch, yet heads were popping. He then stated that they could either put on their suppression devices or die by his hands. A guy then spoke from the crowd, saying it was best they put up a fight since they would end up dead anyway. He argued that the terms of Gangyu's negotiation didn't make sense, considering he is clearly outnumbered. Cold as ever, Gangyu warned them that this was the last bit of mercy he was offering. Activating his power, he called out to everyone, and strangely, all attention shifted toward him. The man urged the others not to be fooled by Ganyu's words, claiming they had the upper hand through numbers and could defeat him with teamwork. If only he knew how delusional he sounded when making such decisions. Our protagonist quickly realized that this guy had to be the one calling the shots, especially after the head warden informed him that everyone on the ground floor had united under his lead. With a cold expression, Ganyu told them they'd left him with no choice. He asked the warden just how strong the prison was, strong enough to withstand his power. She confidently assured him it wouldn't break, no matter what. The cocky ringleader laughed and told everyone to attack. And just like that, they all charged forward like it was going to end well for them. He calmly raised his foot. Sparks of red lightning danced around him, and with a thunderous slam, he sent the entire crowd flying into the air. Then, charging in with a lightning-infused punch, he tore through every single one of them, splitting them in half mid-air before they even had a chance to react. He didn't just tore through them, he rewrote their entire character development in one hit. Blood and bodies rained from above as he casually walked out of the chaos like he had just taken out the trash. Walking down the hallway, he unlocked a door that led to solitary confinement. When it opened, he came across a massive man who claimed he had been waiting for our protagonist. The man asked what had taken him so long, adding that he had always known they would meet again. A flashback revealed that our protagonist had once captured the man. At the time, our protagonist, visibly irritated by his cocky attitude, had tried to kill him but was stopped. He had been reminded that the man still possessed valuable information they needed. Back in the present, Ganyu activated his powers and coldly asked if the man had a death wish. Unfazed, the man smirked and countered by asking if our boy knew why he loved killing people. In an instant, our protagonist decapitated him, only for the fool to reappear behind him, his head still intact. The man taunted him, claiming he used his powers to etch his memory into his victim's eyes. But before he could utter another word, he was sliced in half. As the man's body collapsed, our boy whispered, assuring him no one would remember his name anyway. In the next scene, Huang appeared to be dying of boredom. He wondered aloud how long it would take Ganyu to reach the 5th basement floor, lamenting that it was such a shame the girl wouldn't even fight back. The girl, meanwhile, remained silent, lying there with a tired expression, offering no response. Huang continued to talk completely unfazed by her lack of interest. Outside the prison, 3 figures stood atop a cliff under the moonlight, gazing down in silence. The tallest of the trio turned to the woman beside him, clearly the leader, and asked if she wanted them to intervene. "Let's call her Sinka." She simply replied, "He has shown up." Then, like a lunatic beaming with joy, she exclaimed, "Her husband has shown up." "Wait, the woman? This is getting a little confusing. Let's aim her Gato," and the tall guy Canis. Gato tried to clarify the madness by asking whether Huang wasn't the one Sinka had chosen as her husband. Canis, clearly irritated, added that hadn't that been the whole reason they launched the EMP strike, to save Huang? He also pointed out that Ganyu was a hero. But before he could continue, Sinka cut him off. Her eyes gleamed with an unsettling smile as she declared that Ganyu had been a hero, but he certainly didn't look like one now, with all the involuntary massages he was giving the prisoners. And just like that, Sinka is out here picking husbands like she's shopping at a clearance sale. Gato, clearly fed up, demanded she pick one already, saying she couldn't have both, claiming polygamy is illegal. Honestly, I never expected that polygamy was illegal. But mass murder? Totally fine. Gotta love the moral compass around here. The scene cut to Ganyu as he was approached by the head warden. She complimented him, noting that he had wasted no time clearing the ground floors. She then suggested he take some rest. But Ganyu, cold as ever, simply shut her down, ordering her to open the door. Even though he could feel how genuine her intentions were, he knew he had to clear the place quickly. With that, the door to the 1st basement floor opened. Just before it fully opened, he was suddenly bombarded with a flurry of attacks coming from all directions, barely giving him a chance to react. In the chaos, a figure closed the distance between him and the warden, grabbing her by the neck and lifting her off the ground. It was at that moment we realized she was trash after all. The man announced that he had caught the warden, muttering something about everyone taking turns. But before he could even finish the sentence, he turned around and was met with the sight of his comrades' corpses and the entire room bathed in blood. In an instant, Gong Yu appeared above him. With a single swift punch, he was reduced to nothing. Moments like this made me wonder, was he perhaps a little too overpowered? Well, he's our protagonist. At least he makes the rules. Below, a group of prisoners wondered if the others had managed to break out due to the loud noises coming from above. Suddenly, they were called idiots by a beautiful lady. To be honest, the artist needs to take it easy with the drawing who offended him. Anyway, let's call her Jane. She asked if any of them could single-handedly beat a hero of his rank, saying all of them above were probably dead by now. She further urged everyone to think with their heads. Numbers alone wouldn't be enough to defeat him. Then a guy, clearly irritated by her bossy attitude, demanded that she shut up and stop ordering everyone around. Jane, clearly not interested in engaging in any pointless arguments, sliced him in half without hesitation. She then warned that anyone who tried going against her plan would meet the same fate. I guess democracy wasn't on today's agenda. Backing up her speech, she said she knew his weaknesses because she had seen him train countless times back when she was still a hero. She added that if everyone joined forces, they could bring him down. Now, we see that there are physical-type powers, those who can enhance or manipulate their bodies. There are also creation-type powers, which allow users to create materials out of nothing. All others that don't fall under these two categories are classified as special-type superpowers. Those include timebenders, teleporters, and other unique abilities. We then see our protagonist as he stepped forward asking with the same usual line, either they put on their suppression device or die, but before he could get the whole sentence out, he was struck by a brutal strike landed right on his face, and with that, they all surged forward, attacking him relentlessly, barely giving him time to react. They knew he wouldn't or couldn't dodge. In a blink, several suppression devices were locked onto his body. What a cruel twist. He had tried to restrain them, only to be overwhelmed in return. It seems this might be the end for him. I'll tell you what happened, but I won't make it pretty. Flashback to when Jane told everyone they had gathered enough suppression devices from the warden's corpses. She explained saying 15 could restrain a first-tier hero, and they had 30. That should hold him down. Back to Gong Yu, who stood there, almost helpless, as several prisoners rejoiced over his defeat, unaware that death was about to welcome them with wide open arms. Red lightning engulfed him, tearing off every suppression device that had been placed on him as he punched a hole straight through them, dissecting everything in his path cleanly in half. Without delay, they shouted at him to freeze, threatening to kill the wardens. But our boy, stylish as ever, simply raised his fingers, and in the next moment, they were drowning in their own pool of blood. Honestly, I have no idea what kind of power he possesses, ripping through people's bodies like butter. Clear definition of dangerous. Meanwhile, the others pleaded with our protagonist, claiming it was just a prank. They even offered to put on their suppression devices, begging him not to kill them. The fool didn't even get the sentence out before our protagonist, cold as ever, told them it's too late for that, before handing them a free ticket to hell. Jane, on the other hand, looked like she had just recovered from an electric shock. A guy beside her asked what the next plan was, blaming her for not keeping her word, and now they were all going to die. Unable to keep up with his endless trash talking, Jane simply stabbed a hole through his chest, screaming into the air, demanding how it was even possible for Gong Yu to break free. Someone really needs to sign this girl up for anger management. Unhinged might just be her middle name. Behind her, a warden screamed for help. Jane, filled with murderous intent, tried to finish him off, only to have her hand sliced midair. We then see Gong Yu standing there, calmly asking if she doesn't have any other hobbies besides killing. Meeting his gaze, she asked where her sister was. Our protagonist simply replied, "She's dead, and she died calling your name, Jane." Without a shred of emotion, she said he shouldn't have asked, then charged at him, catching him off guard and driving her blade into Gong Yu. But our boy simply vanished, reappearing beside her and sending her crashing into the wall. Honestly, I thought she'd last more than 5 seconds, but I guess I was wrong. As the smoke cleared, she charged at him without hesitation. A single punch to her stomach gave her entire system a factory reset. Now crouched on the floor, wincing in pain, Gong Yu, his expression cold as ever, asked if she really thought she could beat him with sheer strength, telling her she was no different from the others. Just a pile of trash, now missing a hand, and while kneeling, face pressed to the floor, she begged to be spared, claiming she was sure he'd never lay hands on a woman. Really? Where did all that badass attitude go? Gong Yu simply replied, "The blade of vengeance is unisex," before giving her a VIP entry to the afterlife. The sound echoed throughout the building, making Sinka fall even deeper in love, while Huang grew desperate. He declared he couldn't wait any longer and announced he was heading down to meet Gong Yu. Raising his hand with pride, he was swiftly reminded that this round wasn't his, with an intimate encounter with the wall. An old man stepped out, mockingly asking if Huang was bored. He added if he needs company, he could play with him, claiming it would be a fun experience, as long as he didn't die too quickly.